to the WrestleHavoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc podcast.
What is up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast, here to review Friday Night SmackDown from February 3rd, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the SmackDown review. Of course, the main thing that happened tonight, we got the official fallout from this past Saturday's Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Of course, I'm talking about that crazy-ass ending when it came to the Bloodline whacking Sami Zayn. Of course, Sami hit first, and then the Bloodline just immediately went on a tear on both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the review. Of course, the main thing, that being, we officially got the main event for Elimination Chamber, I believe, which is in 2 weeks. And it's going to be, finally, as we all expected it to be, Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. But before I get on with all of this craziness right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Plus, if you guys haven't checked it out, my AEW Dynamite review is up on the channel. It was kind of a little bit of a struggle this week, I will say, because I was very sick this week, so I uploaded videos late. It was really tough, but I got through it. But if you guys want to check out the AEW Dynamite review, where I discuss Hangman Page versus Jon Moxley Part 3, Darby Allin dropping the TNT Championship to Samoa Joe, and much more, the link will be in the description below. All right, let's talk about Friday Night SmackDown. What are my thoughts on this show? I thought the show was a fine show. Let's be honest, the only thing that everybody was interested in this show was the fallout from the Royal Rumble. And I'm talking about the beatdown and the execution, per se, of Sami Zayn. That was literally the only thing that I was really excited about. Everything else on the show was it was kind of to me, to be quite honest with you. Nothing really special. We had Charlotte versus Sonya Deville. Again, I'm not really interested in that. We had the finals of the SmackDown Tag Team Titles Contenders Tournament between Ricochet and Braun Strowman taking on Imperium. We had Ricochet and Strowman go over in the match, which I wasn't really a fan of, considering the fact that I really wanted Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus Imperium in the finals, and I hated the way that they executed it last week. Other stuff we had, we had the Fatal 4-Way qualifying match between Shayna Baszler, Shotzi Blackheart, Natalya, and Zelina. Whoever won that got into the Women's Elimination Chamber match. And realistically, nothing else. We had a small teaser of Bray Wyatt, but again, the only thing that happened on this show that was really worth noting to was the closing segment, that being Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, which was absolutely fantastic stuff, and it's fantastic storytelling. If I haven't already said it, and you guys already know what I'm going to say, this whole angle that they're doing with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline is the best thing, not only in WWE right now, but honestly, if you really think about it, it is the best thing in pro wrestling, period. I am 100% invested in what the fuck they are doing in this I should say angle or storyline. And of course, did I also mention, we're on the road to WrestleMania 39, and WrestleMania 39 is looking to be absolutely fantastic. The road to WrestleMania is going to look even funner, because I'm very excited to see how WWE builds up WrestleMania, because of course this is the first time Triple H is building up WrestleMania. It's his first WrestleMania that he's booking, I should say. We also got those new match graphics for WrestleMania, which look absolutely amazing. Whoever made those match graphics for WrestleMania, WWE, please give those guys a raise. All right, back to SmackDown. All right, so the SUV arrives, and it's the Bloodline. Caleb Braxton asks Roman Reigns about the status of Jey Uso. Jey, of course, plays an important part of this whole story because of the fact back at the Royal Rumble, Jey did not participate in the beatdown of Sami Zayn. If anything, Jey left the ring. So once Caleb Braxton asks Roman Reigns his question, Roman completely ignores Caleb Braxton. And then Paul Heyman comes in, the wise man comes in, and says that they cannot confirm his status in the Bloodline. And Paul says, "Thanks for wearing our colors tonight." That was a pretty funny line by Paul Lee Dangerously, the wise man. In our first match of the evening, we have the finals of the SmackDown Tag Team Tournament Contenders match between Ricochet and Braun Strowman, taking on Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser of Imperium, with the Intercontinental Champion Gunther in his corner, or in their corner, I should say. Overall thoughts on the match? It was a pretty good match overall. Is it anything compared to the match that Imperium had with Legado del Fantasma? Let's be honest, no, because the Legado del Fantasma match with Imperium last week was something straight out of Black and Gold NXT. Like, it was something like beyond this fucking world, I will say that. Yeah, take that, Braun Strowman, with this dude like hates flippy wrestlers, whatever. But overall, it was a pretty good match overall. I still hated the way that they inserted Ricochet and Braun Strowman into this last week, because number one, I really wanted Drew and Sheamus to face Imperium. That would have been a banger of a match. And not only that, I felt like it didn't really make sense at all anyway, considering the fact that you already knew whoever won this tournament was going to lose to the Usos anyway. So realistically, if you think about it, the point of removing Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, because of the Viking Raiders, in my opinion, was not really that good. Also, I'm not really that invested in the Viking Raiders, to be quite honest with you. So honestly, it was kind of a lose-lose for me. But we had Ricochet and Strowman taking on Imperium. Overall, pretty good match. I felt like the wrong people won, but at the end of the day, can't you really blame WWE? I mean, whoever loses this tournament, once again, we're not going to be the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. So Giovanni Vinci and Braun Strowman start. Ludwig Kaiser tags in. Vinci goes to grab the leg of Strowman, but then Strowman takes out both on the outside. Ricochet is the legal man. He goes for a dropkick and hits a right. After that, Vinci goes for the distraction, and then Kaiser goes for an uppercut when Ricochet turns around. After that, Strowman on the outside runs through Giovanni Vinci, and then he faces off with Gunther, who was on the outside, but then Strowman picks up Kaiser onto the outside. Vinci off the top goes for a crossbody on both men, so he takes out everybody. Once we're back from commercial break, Ricochet hits an immediate crossbody. We got a Hurricane Rana by Giovanni Vinci. He works on Vinci, and he hits the running shooting star press. It always ceases to amaze me. Never ceases to amaze me, man. The running shooting star by Ricochet is something else. Later, Imperium is in control. Strowman then comes in and takes out Giovanni Vinci to the outside. But then Ricochet gets thrown by Strowman onto the outside, but then Gunther gets banned by the referee. After that, Strowman faces off with Gunther, and then Kaiser takes Ricochet and goes for the cover, but we get a near fall. Once we're back from commercial break once again, both Kaiser and Ricochet exchange shots. Ricochet gets hit with an uppercut, and then Ricochet falls with a jumping knee. Ricochet then goes for repeated rights. But then Giovanni Vinci goes for a springboard crossbody, followed by a double dropkick on Strowman. Then we get a cover by Giovanni Vinci and a near fall after that. We get a backdrop by Ricochet countering the Imperial Bomb, but then Ricochet picks up Ludwig Kaiser. Kaiser then escapes. Enziguri by Ricochet. He goes to the top, but then he gets caught by Giovanni Vinci. He drops Ricochet with the Brainbuster. We got a cover and a near fall when Strowman drags Vinci to the outside. Ludwig Kaiser then tags in, but then Ricochet makes the hot tag on Braun Strowman. So Braun Strowman's now the legal man. He throws Kaiser across the ring, and then he hits the springboard crossbody. Vinci hits the springboard crossbody and counters with a pounce by Strowman, or Strowman counters with the pounce on Vinci. Kaiser then goes for the uppercut, but then Strowman takes him out. Strowman then picks up Kaiser and hits the, as Michael Cole would state on commentary, the Monster Bomb. I'm going to call it the Power Bomb. I think the Monster Bomb is a lame-ass name. Ricochet then tags in, and he is up on the shoulders of Strowman and hits the somersault. We get a cover, and Strowman and Ricochet win the match, and they will face the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships next week on SmackDown. But even though that match is happening, we still do not know the status of Jey Uso. You guys already know my thoughts about this match. It was a pretty good match overall, but again, realistically, I would have much rather had Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus Imperium. That would have been a much more entertaining match, in my opinion. I hated the way that they basically, quote-unquote, eliminated by default Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. They could have done that a whole lot better last week. But WWE is WWE at this point. I'm not going to, beat them up too much on that. We get a backstage interview with Charlotte Flair, the current SmackDown Women's Champion. Talks about how WrestleMania will be awesome, but her focus tonight is on Sonya Deville, and talks about how she is persistent. And tonight we are in the Carolinas, of course, the Carolinas, that being Flair country. After that, Sonya Deville immediately comes in, once again reiterates that we are in Flair country, and she's only here for one thing, and it's that SmackDown Women's title. And it will be her and Rhea Ripley, and she says that she is a star, and Mania needs a star. Look, I am not the biggest Charlotte Flair fan, but Jesus Christ, Sonya Deville calling herself a star is the funniest thing ever. And I don't mean that personally, by the way. I just mean that in a jokingly manner. But honestly, did I really care? No, I wasn't really that interested in this feud. I just want this feud to end already. Now, we all know Charlotte Flair is going to be facing Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. I still think that is the wrong decision to make. I personally would have done Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair because of the fact that I'm just more interested in that match. And yes, I know the Royal Rumble, you can choose anybody from either brand, but at the same time, I would have much rather preferred Bianca Belair over Charlotte. And I understand that they want to follow up with continuity per se and kind of have in a way technically long-term storytelling, because they did face off before at WrestleMania 3 years ago, I believe, during the pandemic. It was right in the beginning of the pandemic. And it was for the NXT Women's title. The fact that Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble and went after the NXT Women's Championship, completely asinine beyond me. I just did not know why they made her do that. That made no sense whatsoever. But it is what it is. And I think even though it's the wrong decision to make, still Rhea Ripley should beat Charlotte at WrestleMania, and there's no buts or ifs. We got Dominic Mysterio and Judgment Day invading the NASCAR Clash at the Coliseum with Rey Mysterio and The New Day. So, wrestlers, Rey Mysterio and The New Day, who are the current NXT Tag Team Champions, I believe they did drop them at NXT Vengeance Day, which actually just took place. I didn't watch it, but I heard a lot of good things about it. Both basically face... basically what happens is Judgment Day come in, and they interrupt Rey Mysterio and The New Day. And Dominic just constantly talks about how, Dominic, he's a man now, blah, blah, blah. An argument breaks up. I don't even want to reiterate the things he said. And then all of a sudden they ended up racing in two NASCAR cars. And what happens is it looked like Dominic was going to gain the advantage, but what happened at the end of the day, Rey won last minute. And after that, Dominic gets pissed, a brawl breaks loose, and then they both get separated. Where is this leading to, honestly? Again, it's very logical. I think they're going to be doing Rey Mysterio versus Dominic at WrestleMania. It makes total sense. If they're doing stuff like this still, they've been building this story since Clash at the Castle, even before Clash at the Castle, but it really escalated at Clash at the Castle. They are going full-fledged with this Rey versus Dominic match at WrestleMania, I believe, personally. And overall, I'm here for it because of the fact that, say what you want about Dominic. And I understand the criticisms of Dominic, but you can't deny Dominic is pretty entertaining on the microphone. He's very entertaining on the microphone, and the whole prison shit makes me laugh my ass off. But I'm very excited, and they're going to be doing a match, most likely. It's not official, but most likely, I believe, they're going to be having a match at WrestleMania. All right, here's one match that I really wasn't excited for. Charlotte Flair versus Sonya Deville for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Again, not necessarily the biggest fan of this whole feud. I'm not really interested. I feel like they were just trying to give Charlotte something to do. Same thing as Sonya Deville as well. Sonya Deville is great at what she does, but again, do I see her as a main eventer? Not really. Both lock up. We got a shoulder tackle by Charlotte. We got a cover by Charlotte and a near fall. After that, Charlotte is on the apron, and then she hits a boot on Sonya, but then she goes to the top. She manages to hit the crossbody, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Sonya is on the apron, and she drops down Charlotte. After that, once we're back from break, we get a roll-up by Charlotte, and then Sonya pushes Charlotte. We get a cover by Sonya and a near fall. Charlotte goes for a couple of right hands. We get a couple of chops by Charlotte, followed by a back suplex. Charlotte then gets up. We get a boot by Charlotte, and then we get a cover and another near fall. Charlotte is on the apron, but then Charlotte misses the boot. Then Sonya pulls the boot of Charlotte, but then Sonya goes for the pump kick. We get a cover and a near fall. Sonya is in control over Charlotte, but then we get a knee by Sonya off the top. We get a cover and a near fall. She then tries to apply the figure four, and then Charlotte goes for the inside cradle, and then we get a near fall. She goes for the cartwheel clothesline, I should say. Charlotte goes for that. After that, we get a cover by Charlotte once again, and we get another near fall. Charlotte then goes for the moonsault, but then she lands on her feet. Actually, she doesn't land on her feet. She actually lands on a boot by Sonya Deville. Sonya then goes for the cover, but has her feet on the middle rope. But then we get a near fall. Then we get a sunset flip roll-up by Sonya, but then Charlotte immediately counters it, goes for the figure four, of course, a signature Charlotte move. Then she transitions the figure four into the figure eight. Sonya taps out, and Charlotte retains the SmackDown Women's Championship. Again, was this a match that I honestly was excited for? No. This was probably just a match for the sake of being a match. Of course, Charlotte was going to retain. There was no chance in hell, no pun intended, that Sonya was going to win the SmackDown Women's Champion. And now they're on to the build for WrestleMania between both Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley. We get a video package on the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and of course him winning the Royal Rumble. And it is official. It's going to be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. And let me tell you guys, those match graphics that WWE put out for that match, for WrestleMania in general, whoever designed, and I say to this at the top, whoever designed those match card graphics, holy shit, WWE, give that guy a raise because they look beautiful as fuck. I'm a sucker for match card graphics, okay? All right. We get a backstage segment with the Bloodline. Now, this is where shit gets actually really good. Roman is with, of course, Jimmy, Paul Heyman, Solo Sikoa. So he's with all three of those men. Of course, the story throughout this whole show is, where is Jimmy Uso? So Roman asks Jimmy, where's his brother? And then Jimmy says he doesn't know. And Roman asks if he talked to him. And Jimmy says he hasn't heard from him. And then Roman asks him again if asks him if he finds that disrespectful. He walked out and doesn't care to communicate. He mentions that they have a title match next week. And Roman asks him again, has he talked to his brother? And then Jimmy kind of like gets up and he's like, I say it again, he needs time to chill. And then Roman asks Solo, but then they got no answer. Jimmy says, no one has heard from Jay. Roman then asks Paul if it's WrestleMania season. And he talks about how they always need to basically keep an eye out for these things. And Roman basically demands in a pissed off form that Solo and Jimmy have to find Jay now. And let me tell you guys, when Roman demanded that Solo and Jimmy had to find Jay, I'm not gonna lie, man, I was kind of intimidated. I was very intimidated. Like, I was like, shit, imagine if that was Roman talking to me like that. Like, I'd be scared as fuck. Like, I don't know why, man. Everybody talks about the heel heat that Roman Reigns generates, but just the sheer intimidation of Roman Reigns is one of the things that makes him good. That's just my opinion, because every time, and we saw this with Sami Zayn, we saw this with Jey Uso, we saw this ever since he turned heel. The intimidation of Roman Reigns really makes up his whole character. Even Paul Heyman, you see the look on Paul Heyman's face every time when like Roman like targets somebody, he just immediately looks at Roman Reigns like. Or every time when Roman calls Paul Heyman, Heyman just quickly just be like, yes, my tribal chief. The intimidation factor of Roman Reigns is one of the things that sets Roman Reigns unlike any other heel in the business today. That's all I'm going to say about that. He's fantastic. We got the Viking Raiders versus Butch and Ridge Holland of the Brawling Brutes. Of course, the Viking Raiders are in a current feud with Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, a feud that I am not interested in whatsoever at all. I'm not really that invested within the Viking Raiders at this point. I understand they're trying to make them a big deal, but like, to be quite honest with you, it's just not really hitting for me. But let's discuss the match. Ivar and Butch start. Ivar then sends him to the corner. Butch then manages later on, because Eric later on is actually the legal man. He twists the fingers of Eric. Then Holland tags in. He works on Holland, and he tries to suplex Ridge Holland, but then Holland instead suplexes him back. After that, they both take him and hit the double 10 beats of the Balor after that. Butch then goes over the top, but then Eric ducks. Butch, at this point, is in front of Sarah Logan, and then the Raiders regain control. Once they're back from break, Butch then tags Holland, but then Holland takes Eric and throws him, and then he throws him again. Then Holland goes for the belly-to-belly throw. After that, he runs into a knee by Eric, but then Ivar tags in. He tries to go for the pile driver, but then Holland counters with an Alabama slam. We get a cover and a near fall, and then we get repeated back elbows by Ivar, but then Butch tags in. Butch then goes for a boot, followed with an enziguri on Eric. At this point, Eric is the legal man. Then Eric goes for the lariat. We get a cover and a near fall. Eric then gives Butch to Ivar, and then both men are on the top. Butch is then fighting out Ivar, but then we get a Hurricane Rana by Butch off the top rope. We get a cover and a near fall, but then Butch off the second rope hits a moonsault. But then Ivar catches him. Butch then goes for the sleeper, but then Eric tags in. Holland then wins into a spinning kick, or goes for a spinning kick, grows into a spinning kick, I should say, by Ivar onto the outside. Ivar then tags in, but then both take Butch and hit the Ragnarok, and then we get a cover, and the Viking Raiders win the match. My apologies if it kind of mixed up right there. My notes kind of fucked up. But overall, the Viking Raiders got the win. Not interested whatsoever within the Viking Raiders. Then after that, Drew and Sheamus come out, and then both teams fight it out on the stage. Sheamus sends Eric onto the scaffolding. Drew sends Ivar onto the stage. And then he hits a boot, and then the Viking Raiders stand tall. After that, we got Bray Wyatt in a rocking chair, and all of a sudden, it shows Uncle Howdy standing up right next to him, and he basically zooms in the camera, and like they just immediately show Uncle Howdy's face. What does this mean? Is Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt now a tag team? Who knows? Very confusing stuff going on in the realm of Bray Wyatt. A lot of supernatural shit is happening, and we don't even know what the hell is going on with Alexa Bliss at this point. We get a fatal 4-way Elimination Chamber qualifying match between both Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, and Zelina. Of course, we have another fatal 4-way happening this coming Monday on Raw as well, to basically get the final participant in the Elimination Chamber match. Overall, this was a pretty short match, relatively in my opinion. Shotzi runs the ropes, but then gets dragged by Zelina. Zelina then sends her to the barricade. We get a roll-up by Zelina, and then we get a near fall. After that, Zelina counters the discus clothesline, and then she hits the sunset flip after that. And then we get a cover and a near fall. Shayna Baszler then comes in and then slams her down. We get a backbreaker by Shayna, but then she goes to the outside, and then Shayna later hits the knee on Natalya. We get a cover and a near fall. Once we're back from break, after that Shayna and Shotzi Blackheart fight it out. We get a roll-up by Shotzi followed by a kick. At this point, Shotzi Blackheart is in control. After that, we get a senton by Shotzi on Shayna, sending her to the outside. Shotzi goes for the tope suicida. Zelina Vega is on the top, and then she hits a moonsault, taking both women out on the outside. Natalya then comes in, and then she takes Shotzi in the ring. She applies the sharpshooter, and after that, Zelina comes in and goes for the running bulldog, and then Shotzi takes out Zelina. Shotzi, or I should say Shayna, goes for the German suplex and then applies the Karavuda clutch on Zelina Vega. Natalya then tries to go for the discus clothesline, but then Shayna counters and applies a Karavuda clutch on her, and then Natalya escapes. She then applies the sharpshooter on Zelina, and then Zelina taps, and Natalya wins the Fatal 4-Way, and she is now in the Women's Elimination Chamber match. And, of course, whoever wins that Women's Elimination Chamber match will face Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. So, out of the 5 qualifiers so far, now we got the women. I'm actually pulling up the Women's Elimination Chamber match because I completely forgot who was actually in it. But basically, we now Natalya is now in the match. So on Monday on Raw, we are going to be getting a Fatal 4-Way match, the same thing that we got on this show, and it's between Candice LeRae, Mitch and Mia Yim, Piper Niven, and Carmella. And out of those 4 women, I feel like who's going to win that match, honestly, it's either for me, Mia Yim or Candice LeRae. That's who I see win. Actually, I take that back. You actually got Carmella coming back now, so I wouldn't be surprised if they actually had Carmella win on her first match back. So I could definitely see that being the case as well. But honestly, who do I see winning this Women's Elimination Chamber match? Honestly, I definitely see Asuka winning this shit because Asuka versus Bianca Belair is definitely a match that I'm very interested in. I believe she's in the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Yes, she is. But yeah, man, it's going to be very interesting, the Women's Elimination Chamber match. The Men's Elimination Chamber match is actually looking pretty stacked as well. Of course, that is for the United States Championship. Seth Rollins is in the match. Johnny Gargano's in the match. Of course, Austin Theory's in the match. So there's a lot of crazy shit happening on that. But realistically, let's be honest. The main thing when it comes to the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view as a whole that we're all interested in is, of course, Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns. So before the Roman Reigns segment, Roman is backstage with Paul Heyman. And Paul tries to call Jey Uso, but then Jey does not pick up the phone. Jimmy and Solo Sikoa come in, and they tell Roman that they haven't got a hold of Jey. Roman then says he doesn't understand. Out of all the times this happens, they were doing so good. No problems and no hiccups. He then asks Jimmy if he understands his position. He feels like he is being pulled right now. He loves them, and he's sorry for speaking the way that he did, because he needs them. He needs them to be as strong as they ever were, because if they're not, there's no more of this, that being the bloodline. And then he then tells them that the wise man has set up lots of dinners, and he wants them to go to the bus and have that dinner, and tells them to enjoy themselves, because Roman wants to go to the ring alone with Paul Heyman. I feel like what they're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks, not only leading up to Elimination Chamber, I feel like what they're going to be doing leading up to WrestleMania is going to have like this, and then a lot of people really pointed it out. They're going to be doing like this paranoid version of Roman Reigns where like Roman Reigns at this point just had enough and he's just paranoid as fuck that he's going to lose his title. And you know what's happening, man. This man is losing his championship at WrestleMania at this point, man. We had this title run since the summer of 2020. And we're in February of 2023. Look, there's never going to be anybody, even nobody close to the level that Roman Reigns was in his dominant heel run. Just nobody. I'm sorry. All right. Now we got the Roman Reigns segment. Yes, the creme de la creme of this whole show. A segment that everybody was excited about because of the fact that all everybody remembers from the Royal Rumble last Saturday was that amazing ending in which Sami Zayn gets executed from the Bloodline. And I talked about this on the Royal Rumble review. That whole segment that went down after the Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns match, that whole thing that went down, that was top tier storytelling. Storytelling is what makes wrestling good, because it makes the viewer invested in what the fuck they are watching. This storyline is no different, and it literally made Sami Zayn the ultimate babyface. Now, I hear a lot of division. On social media about the fans are going to turn on Cody Rhodes because Sami is so hot. Let me remind you people that when the Honorary Uce storyline started, the real feud is not necessarily with Roman and Sami. If you really think about it, dating back to when this first Sami Zayn Honorary Uce storyline started, the tension really started with Jay and Sami. And now Jay is in the exact same position as Sami Zayn. That's all I'm going to tell you guys. Because clearly people are saying, oh, do Sami versus Roman on night 1 and Cody versus Roman on night 2. If they do that and Sami beats Roman on night 1 and Cody, beats Roman on night 2, Cody is going to get the lower end of the stick because of the fact that if Sami beats Roman first, then really what is the point of Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns? You know what I'm saying? It would make no sense. So the fact that people are creating all of these assumptions, the whole wrestling community right now with all this division between Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes are literally like Vince McMahon in the fucking creative chair, because they would be scrambling right now if they were still in charge. They would be scrambling and not even knowing what the WrestleMania main event would be. That's all I'm going to say about that. But again, this whole storyline started with Jay and Sami, not Roman and Sami. They're doing the Roman and Sami match in Montreal. Again, there's a reason why this match is happening in Montreal. It's because of the fact that they're building up with Jey Uso being in the exact same position that Sami was before, and he has to choose between Sami or his family. And what they're basically going to be doing is Jey fucks over Sami in the match against Roman Reigns, and then you're going to have the Bloodline basically beat down not Roman Reigns. They're going to beat down Sami Zayn, which will then lead to Kevin Owens coming out in his hometown of Montreal to a huge pop, and you get the reunion of both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And you're basically, you're going to have the Usos be mega fucking heels at that point, and they're going to dethrone the Usos for the Unified Tag Team titles at WrestleMania. That is the story that they are going. If you don't like it, tough shit. That is what this whole story is about. If anything, this whole story doesn't really revolve around Roman. You may think it does, but if you really think about it, it definitely revolves around Jey. It really does. You just need to think more. It really does revolve around Jey. And it's going to pay off 100% tremendously, because keep in mind, then after Jey fucks over Sami, all of the heat from that Roman is getting is going to be put on Jey Uso. It's going to be put on Jey Uso and both of the Usos, and they're going to be mega fucking heels, and then you can have Roman actually focus on Cody. You get the best of both worlds at this point. So I don't understand why people are creating all this fucking confusion right now. People are literally thinking that they're going to be turning on Cody Rhodes. If this was Vince McMahon's WWE, I would agree with you. But this is Triple H we're talking about. Name one fucking babyface that Triple H booked in NXT that people fucking booed. I can't remember a single one. And I wasn't really the biggest black and gold watcher, but I know for a fact Johnny Gargano was booked so well that everybody fucking loved Johnny Gargano, and nobody booed the fuck out of Johnny Gargano when he was a babyface. So don't create that fucking narrative, please. All right, so we get that Roman Reigns segment. We get a bunch of Sami chants, and he says Greensville, Greenville, South Carolina, I should say. He tells them to acknowledge him. We get a bunch of Sami chants from the crowd, and he was going to ask the people, who's he going to talk about? But it's pretty obvious. He would sit here and talk about Cody Rhodes. That's the guy that won the Royal Rumble, and he is somebody that deserves his attention. But we simple folks reduce for him to talk about the past. And we get a bunch of Sami chants from the crowd, and he proceeds to talk about Sami. And Roman says that there are two sides to every story, and we will hear his side of the story. Let's go back to War Games. When he looked Sami dead in his eyes and he told the world that he saw everything he needed to see, you know what he saw? He saw greed. He saw the same thing everyone that he interacts with nowadays. If a restaurant is lucky to have him, the people that work there say that they have the same, basically all they want is just the want. They want things from him. What can he do for him like he hasn't done enough? He gives Sami the opportunity of a lifetime and he uses him. He's no different than all of us. We want. But then out of nowhere, so Roman is continuing to cut his promo. And then Sami Zayn, a hooded Sami Zayn, comes in and he immediately just attacks Roman Reigns from behind. And then Roman fights back. Roman then demands a chair from Paul Heyman. And after that, once Roman Reigns gets the chair, Roman turns around and Sami spears the living shit out of Roman Reigns. Yes, he speared him. He hit him with his own move. After that, so Sami Zayn gets the mic, and it looks like Roman Reigns is about to retreat. So he gets the microphone, and he screams Roman's name, but like he screamed his name like furiously. And he says he has it all wrong. He never wanted anything from him until now. He wants something from him now, and he will take it, and he is coming after him. And that is the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. But then out of nowhere, from behind, Jimmy Uso hits a super kick. Solo Sikoa grabs him, and then they beat the shit out of Sami Zayn. Then we get a Samoan spike by Solo Sikoa after that. Jimmy then sets up the chair onto the head of Sami, and then Solo tries to run towards Sami, but then Roman stops him. And then Roman stops Solo Sikoa, right? And then Roman actually takes the chair out of the head of Sami Zayn. And Sami's just literally like, his head is just laying on the bottom rope, in the bottom turnbuckle. And then Roman doesn't even get the microphone. This is what I talked about earlier about the intimidation factor. Roman has that intimidation factor. Roman just cuts this angry ass promo on Sami Zayn right in front of his face without the microphone. So he just screams at Jay. He thinks that, Roman tells Sami that the people want Jey Uso, but Jey is not here. His right-hand man is not here because he broke up his family. He gave him the keys to the kingdom, and he gave them the promised land. And what does he do? He breaks his family. And he will get what he wants. Sami will get what he wants. But Sami has to give Roman what he wants. And he wants him in Montreal at the Elimination Chamber because he broke his family. And he will break Sami in front of his family, his wife, his child, all his family, his friends, and his relatives, everyone. He wants them to see what happens when you... And after this, he went from 0 to 100. He says he wants them to see what happens when you mess with the bloodline and you mess with his family. And then Roman says, see you soon. He grabs both belts and says this is simple to him, and this is reality. The bloodline, or I should say the majority of the bloodline, Jey, of course, is not there, stand tall to basically, I don't want to say defeated Sami Zayn, but Sami Zayn has just beat the shit at this point once again by the bloodline. This was absolutely perfect. This was done perfectly. Again, Montreal at Elimination Chamber is the right decision to make. Cody Rhodes is not going to get overshadowed because of the fact that WWE has time, and I have full faith in Triple H to make all of this shit work. Because if you think about it, once we head towards Elimination Chamber, we will all know where the allegiance of Jey Uso will lie, and the heat will go from Roman to Jey Uso. And the Usos are going to be known as malicious fucking heels more than Roman at the Elimination Chamber. Because again, the story does not revolve. If you think about it, the story does not really revolve with Sami and Roman. It actually revolves around Sami and Jey. that is the Wrestling 101 long-term storytelling lesson that I want to give all of you guys, and all of you guys in the IWC that are constantly just thinking the fucking worst. Y'all really contemplating like Vince McMahon right now. If the story is literally right in front of you guys, and you guys are literally acting like Vince McMahon and his whole team just scrambling to see what the fuck the WrestleMania main event is right now. It's absolutely fucking crazy. But Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns is official for Montreal at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and I'm absolutely freaking excited for this match. But that was my SmackDown review from February 3rd, 2023. Overall thoughts on the show. It was a fine show overall. Realistically, nothing really special on the show happened. Of course, the main important thing that happened on the show was the main event segment with the Bloodline. That was really the only interesting story on this whole show. Everything else was not really that special. But overall, it was a fine show for what it was. But yeah, that was my SmackDown review. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out.